The first night Lina saw the garden, she thought it was a dream. She had returned to Mirapur only 3 days earlier, a village she hadn't visited since childhood. Her mother had died in the city, leaving behind a tangle of stories and silence. The village, wrapped in mist and old trees, welcomed her with distant stares and too many unspoken warnings. "You shouldn't stay long," her aunt had muttered when Lina arrived. "Why?" Her aunt had only replied, "The moon is almost full." Lina thought it was just superstition. Until that night. The full moon rose pale and slow, casting silver light across the forest behind her grandmother's house. Lina couldn't sleep. The air was too still, too heavy, as if holding its breath. Something pulled her outside. She didn't bring a flashlight. Didn't need one. The moon lit the forest like a lantern from another world. She walked a narrow path, barefoot and uncertain, following a scent, roses. The scent grew stronger with each step. Rich, sweet, almost intoxicating. Then she saw it. A garden. Where there had been only wild grass and rock before, now bloomed rows and rows of roses, deep crimson, the color of dried blood. They swayed though there was no wind, and they glowed faintly under the moonlight. A clearing wrapped in silence. And at the center, a fountain. Dry, cracked, but beautiful in a way that didn't feel natural. Lina stepped forward, heart pounding. The roses seemed to breathe. She reached for one. Just one. Its petals felt warm against her skin. He plucked it. The moment she did, a cold wind rushed through the trees. The air thickened. The garden whispered. And from behind her a voice rose, low, ancient, and mournful. She touched the rose. The rose didn't wither. Not after a night. Not after 2. Lina had placed it on her grandmother's old prayer shelf, half expecting it to crumble like any other flower plucked in the heat of summer. But it remained perfect. Its petals were still red, impossibly red, like fresh paint. The edges were soft and velvety. And sometimes, in the quiet just before dawn, she swore she could see it pulsing. Breathing. She didn't mention the garden to her aunt. Didn't ask about the path, or the roses, or the fountain. But the next morning her aunt looked at her strangely, as if she smelled something wrong. "You dreamt of it, didn't you?" she asked gently. Lina hesitated. "What?" Her aunt's eyes darkened. "The garden. Don't lie." Lina forced a smile. It was real. The silence between them thickened. Her aunt stepped closer, voice low. "You should not have gone. And you should not have taken the rose." That night Lina dreamed of fire. A sky split open by wind. A voice in the forest calling someone's name again and again, but not her name. A woman, draped in black, standing in the garden with her face turned to the moon. And behind her, something else. A shape made of shadow and flame. Watching. Waiting. She woke with her window open. She hadn't opened it. And the rose on her shelf was gone. In its place, a single thorn. Later that day she found the rose again, in her pillowcase. Fresh. Alive. Wrapped in her own hair. By the third night, the dreams no longer waited for sleep. She would blink and see the garden. Blink again and she'd feel wind from nowhere. And when the moon rose full again, she stepped outside, drawn like a tide, and found the garden waiting. Identical. Roses in bloom. Fountain dry. Only this time, something stood at the edge. A man. Or what looked like a man. Too tall. Too still. His eyes glowed like embers and his voice crawled across her skin. You've touched the rose. Now the rose touches you. Lina didn't sleep that night. After the garden faded and the man-shaped shadow disappeared into the trees, she stood outside her grandmother's house until the first birds began to sing. By the time the sun rose, the garden was gone. The roses, the air heavy with scent, vanished, like a dream too heavy to carry into daylight. But the rose on her pillow remained, and it now had a name carved into its stem. Zara. She showed it to her aunt over tea. Her aunt dropped the cup, chattered like bone. She didn't speak for a long time, then whispered, "You were never meant to come back here." Lina pressed. "What is this garden? Why do I keep seeing it?" Her aunt stared at her, 100 emotions rippling behind her eyes. Finally she said, "It was real. Once. A gift. A curse. Both. Years ago, in a time before the road to Mirapur had been built, there had been a girl named Zara. Kind, strange, beautiful. She would vanish into the forest at night, speak in languages no one else knew, and return smelling of roses. They thought she was mad. Until one summer when she vanished for good. No footprints. No note. Only a single rose on her bed. Perfect. Alive. And no one dared to touch it. The villagers said Zara had been taken. That she had loved something not human. That she had made a pact. A promise under the full moon. And that when she failed to return to the garden, the jinn who loved her cursed the land. The garden would bloom again, only under moonlight. Only when someone bearing her soul stepped into it. And if that person picked a rose, he would wake. Lina's hands trembled. "But I'm not Zara." Her aunt said nothing, then gently touched her face. "You look exactly like her." That night the wind began to whisper. Not howl, not moan, whisper. And it whispered a name. Zara. Again and again. Outside her window. In the walls. In her breath. The moon rose slowly, full and white, like an eye refusing to blink. Lina stood at her window, trembling, the rose clutched in her hand. It hadn't faded. It never did. Even when she tried to leave it in the forest, it always came back. On her pillow, beneath her foot, nestled in the pocket of her coat. It was a mark now. And when she held it close, she could hear the whispers clearer. Soft. Hypnotic. "Come back, Zara." She hadn't told her aunt she was going. She hadn't planned to. But her body moved on its own. Her feet knew the way. The garden awaited her. Alive. Unchanged. Endless rows of roses shimmered under the moonlight. Their scent sweet and heavy like perfume made from memory. The fountain stood dry as ever, but the air around it shimmered. And beside it stood him. dark, eyes glowing faintly red, like embers still waiting to become flame. He said nothing at first, then raised his hand, palm up, as if welcoming her home. Lina took a step forward, then stopped. "I'm not her," she said. His head tilted slightly. "No," he said, voice like smoke curling through ancient trees. "But her soul lingers in you. Her breath, her blood, her choice. I didn't choose this." He took a slow step forward. The rose did. The wind stirred the petals as if they were listening. Lina clutched the flower tighter. Why did she come here? Why did she stay? His eyes burned brighter for a moment. Because she loved me. And then she feared me. A silence bloomed between them. "She promised to return," he said. "She never did." Lina swallowed hard. "So you cursed the land?" He shook his head. "I only kept the garden waiting." The roses around them shifted. Open wider. 1,000 eyes in bloom. "She was the first," the jinn said. "But not the only. Many have walked here. Some resisted. Some forgot. Only one truly listened." He stepped closer. "And now you've come. And you're listening too." Lina's heart pounded. The garden no longer felt still. It watched. The jinn lifted his hand. A new rose bloomed from the ground between them, pure white, veined with gold. He plucked it and held it out. "If you take it," he whispered, "you stay." Lina stared at it. It was beautiful, alive, radiating warmth she hadn't felt since her mother's passing. Her fingers twitched. The jinn smiled sadly. "You don't have to choose now. The garden will wait. It always waits." He vanished, and the white rose remained on the earth, still glowing, still breathing, waiting. Lina packed at dawn. She didn't tell her aunt where she was going, only that she needed to leave, that she'd had enough of the village, the dreams, the silence. Her aunt didn't argue, but as Lina reached the gate, her aunt handed her a pouch tied with a thin red thread. "What is it?" Lina asked. "Salt," her aunt replied. "And silver. Keep it close. Don't look at reflections after sunset. And whatever you do, don't bring the rose with you." Lina nodded, heart heavy. She stepped out onto the road. The first sign that something was wrong came 10 minutes into her journey. She passed the same tree 3 times. A crooked tamarind with its roots half above the earth, curved like claws. She'd marked it when she first passed it, 3 small pebbles at its base. Each time she passed it again, the pebbles were still there, untouched. The road was looping. She turned around, retraced her steps. But the forest had changed. Paths she knew were gone. The air grew thick, heavy. The scent of roses followed her, even when there were no roses in sight. Panic rose in her throat. She pulled the salt pouch tighter in her grip and whispered a prayer her grandmother had taught her, just in case. The forest didn't answer, but the path did. A new one unfurled before her, made not of soil but of crimson petals, fresh and blooming in her wake. A crimson path. She followed it helplessly, drawn, but until she stood once more at the edge of the garden. The roses swayed gently. Waiting. At the center the jinn stood. This time he looked different. Younger. Softer. His fire was hidden behind eyes that looked almost human. You tried to leave, he said. I did leave. He shook his head slowly. No one truly leaves until the garden lets them. Lina's voice cracked. Why are you doing this? I'm not, he said. You are. He stepped forward and the path beneath her feet lit up like coals. Every step toward fear, he said, was a step closer to memory. What do you mean? The jinn reached out, not to touch her but to show her something. In the air shapes shimmered visions. They're laughing, crying, standing in the same place Lina stood now. A mirror of herself. You are the echo, the jinn whispered. And echoes always return to where the voice first broke. Lina turned to run. But the garden shifted. Every rose turned its head toward her. And from between their thorns, something began to rise. A shape. Made of fire. Made of grief. Made of Zara's sorrow. It whispered in a voice that was hers. Stay. And I will remember you. The garden fell silent. No wind. No whispers. Only the steady pulse of fire blooming between the roses. It wasn't a flame that burned. It was a flame that remembered. In the center where the jinn had stood moments ago, now rose a mirror. Framed in vines. Wrapped in rose stems, their thorns gleaming under moonlight. And in it Lina saw herself. But not quite. The girl in the mirror was draped in deep crimson. Her hair fell longer, braided with petals. Her eyes shimmered with the same sorrow that lingered in the jinn's. She was not Lina. She was Zara. The jinn's voice returned, quiet and near, though Lina could no longer see him. She didn't run. Lina stepped closer to the mirror. She chose, he said. But the world called her mad. Her family burned her name. And she disappeared. Lina's fingers brushed the glass. The reflection did the same. Their fingertips met. A jolt shot through her. Memories not hers rushed in. A field of roses growing where nothing should bloom. A girl whispering to the moon each night, begging for love, for escape. A being made of fire offering comfort. Offering forever. A promise whispered beneath a moon-drenched sky. I will return. I swear it. Lina staggered back, breath gone. She was me, she whispered. No, said the jinn. She is you. The mirror cracked. A thin line. Then another. And suddenly it shattered without sound into flames that rose high into the sky. The roses caught fire yet did not burn. The petals curled inward, pulsing like hearts. And from the flame stepped Zara, not a ghost, not an echo, but a reflection now made flesh. She stood beside Lina, identical in every way save her eyes. Hers were full of ash and longing. She reached for Lina's hand. You came back, Zara said. I didn't mean to, Lina replied. But you did. And now we must choose. The jinn appeared once more. His form flickered. He looked tired. You cannot both remain, he said. The garden was meant for one heart. One name. Lina looked at Zara, and Zara looked at the jinn, then at the roses. They were all waiting, breathing, watching. Lina whispered, "What happens if we choose wrong?" The jinn didn't answer. Only the garden did, with a sound like a heart splitting in two. The garden held its breath. Zara stood like a statue beside Lina, her fingers still interlocked with hers, her presence as real as the soil beneath their feet. Yet she flickered now and then like moonlight caught in mist. The jinn watched them silently. For the first time he looked afraid. Not of them, but of what might come next. "You said the garden waits," Lina whispered. "But it wasn't waiting for me, was it?" The jinn didn't answer. Zara turned to her, her eyes suddenly dim. It was waiting for him. Lina's breath caught. "What?" Zara looked at the jinn. "Tell her." He closed his eyes. "I was never just a guardian of this place. I was once bound to it." He stepped forward, his voice softer now. "Long ago I loved her, Zara. A girl who saw me not as monster or myth, but as something worthy of love." Lina's chest tightened. "But she was human," the jinn continued, "and I was not. And though we promised each other forever, she could not return when the time came." Zara whispered, "They made sure I couldn't." The garden shimmered. The roses began to lean, petal by petal, toward Zara. Their color deepened. Crimson turned to almost black. Lina saw something in the soil below them. Bones. Small, curled, fragile. A girl buried beneath roses. Lina stepped back. "You were killed," she whispered. "They thought you were cursed." Zara nodded once, slow and solemn. "They burned my name from the family register. Buried me under the flowers I loved." The jinn looked at the ground. "I returned, but she never did. I waited. I called her, and then in grief I cursed the soil so her memory could not die." Lina's heart thudded in her ears. "So the garden isn't a place," she said. "It's a grave." The jinn's eyes glowed with sorrow. "I've tended it ever since. Every full moon I called for her. And when others came, I hoped. I waited. But none were her." Zara stepped forward. "But now, she is." Lina didn't move. "I'm not her." "No," the jinn said. "You're more. You carry her soul. But your choice must be yours." Zara reached into her own chest, pulled something glowing from her ribs, a flicker of flame, soft and blue. "I was love," she whispered, "and I was sorrow, but I was never finished." She held the flame out. "To stay," she said, "means to complete the vow I couldn't. To remain in this garden. Forever." Lina stared at the light. "And to leave," she asked. "Means forgetting," the jinn whispered. "Means burying this place once and for all." The garden pulsed. The roses all turned to her. Every petal opened wide. Every thorn gleamed. Every whisper hushed. Waiting. The flame pulsed in Zara's hand. It didn't burn. It shimmered, blue and silver, like a candle caught between sorrow and moonlight. It cast no shadow, yet it warmed the air around them as if memory itself had been lit. Lina's hands trembled. Zara looked at her, not pleading, not forcing. Just waiting. I never got to finish, Zara said quietly. They ended my story halfway through. The jinn stood just beyond the roses, motionless. Watching. Guarding. Enduring. Lina stepped back. I don't know what's right, she whispered. I didn't come here to inherit someone else's tragedy. Zara nodded. But the rose chose you. And what if I hadn't picked it? Zara looked down. Then we would have both faded. The wind picked up suddenly, sharp and fragrant. Petals spiraled in slow motion through the air. The roses tilted toward Lina again, and beneath her feet the earth shifted, softened, like breath beneath the surface of skin. Lina could feel it now. The heartbeat of the garden. Not a place. A soul. Hers. Zara's. Both. The jinn stepped closer. If you take the flame, the garden stays alive, he said. You'll stay. He nodded once. As long as the moon rises and a name is remembered. And if I don't? His voice grew softer. Then the roses will wither. The soil will seal. The flame will die. And you. He hesitated. I will forget. Lina turned to Zara again. I'm not sure I believe in second chances. Zara smiled faintly. They're not for us, she said. They're for the ones we leave behind. Lina closed her eyes. The weight of it all pressed into her chest. The choice, the echo, the legacy of love turned curse. She reached out, touched the flame, and it entered her. Pain bloomed instantly, not like fire but like memory crashing back all at once. Lina saw Zara's final moments, saw the faces of those who betrayed her, felt the roses growing above her grave, felt the jinn waiting through seasons, centuries, silence, waiting for a name that never came. When Lina opened her eyes, the garden had changed. The roses were taller, stronger. Their thorns curled protectively, not aggressively. Zara was gone, but her voice lingered in the wind. Thank you. The jinn looked at Lina with something close to awe. You stayed. No, Lina said. I chose. Morning never came, at least not in the way Lina remembered. The sun rose, yes. Birds returned. Dew sparkled on the grass like 1,000 tiny eyes. But the air, something in it had changed. Lina stood barefoot in the garden that wasn't supposed to exist in daylight. But now it did. The roses were still blooming. Crimson. White. Some newly silvered with threads of moonlight woven through their petals. The garden had chosen to stay. But she had. Her aunt found her at the edge of the forest just after noon. She gasped. You came back. Lina turned slowly, unsure what she looked like anymore. I never left, she said softly. Her aunt's eyes welled with tears. You look like her, but you're not her. No, Lina agreed. But I remember her. I remember everything now. She held out her hand, and in her palm bloomed a rose, glowing faintly from within, alive with memory. I carry the garden now. From that day forward, the villagers whispered once more of how the garden no longer appeared only under the full moon, of how a girl could be seen standing among the roses, her feet bare, her hair trailing rose petals, her eyes older than her years. And always, always with her, the jinn, no longer waiting, but watching, protecting, bound not by grief, but by choice. And with every full moon the garden would bloom brighter, more vivid, more alive. People came from nearby villages, drawn by dreams they couldn't explain. They'd wander into the woods, guided by the scent of roses and the feeling of being remembered. Some came to forget, some came to grieve, some came to whisper names they were afraid time might erase. And the garden would listen, and bloom a little more. But Lina knew, a gift like this wasn't given freely. It was kept, tended, carried, like a flame, like a wound, like a vow. The years passed gently like petals falling into still water. Lina aged but slowly, almost unnaturally. The villagers whispered that time didn't touch her the way it did others, that the garden had marked her, that the jinn still watched her from the shadows between trees. Every full moon the roses bloomed brighter. Every full moon, a few more strangers wandered into the woods, drawn by the scent of sorrow and sweetness. And every full moon, Lina remembered, the flame, the first promise whispered beneath moonlight. But on the night of the 7th year something changed. The moon rose, but it was dim, clouded, like it had grown tired of watching. The roses didn't bloom all at once. Some refused. Others wilted mid-petal as if their roots no longer believed in the vow. And the garden felt still. Too still. The jinn appeared just past midnight. His form flickered. His fire low. "You feel it," he said. Lina nodded. "It's ending." He stepped toward her. Not by curse. Not by fear. But by design. She looked down at her hands. They glowed faintly now. Not just with the garden's magic, but with choice. And sorrow. And wisdom. "The garden lives because we remember," she said quietly. "But maybe it's time we let go." He didn't argue. He just asked, "Will you forget?" She shook her head. "No. But I'll stop holding it too tightly." The jinn looked toward the fountain, still dry after all these years. "If we let it sleep, it may not wake again." "Maybe that's what peace is," she said. "Not waking, not forgetting, just resting." She walked to the center of the garden, the same place she once picked the rose that started everything. She knelt, placed one hand on the earth, and whispered, "Zara." A soft wind rose. The roses leaned, and the jinn bowed his head. The garden shimmered one final time, then faded. The next morning the forest was empty. No path, no roses, only grass, and a quiet breeze that smelled faintly of moonlight and ash. Lina left Mirapur weeks later, moved to a small town where no one knew her name, tended a little garden of her own. Nothing magical, just herbs, marigolds, 1 or 2 red roses. She never married, but she smiled often. And every now and then, under a full moon, a stranger would stop outside her gate. They wouldn't speak. They'd just breathe deep, like they were remembering something they hadn't known they'd forgotten. And Lina would offer them tea and say nothing. The garden was gone, but the promise, the memory, the flame, still alive, somewhere in the world, waiting to bloom again.